Shalom, y'all. Tonight with Let's Get Deep Bible Study, we're going to be starting in Genesis 33 and going over 33 and 34. A little bit of a trigger warning because these chapters we're going over do talk about rape, and so we're going to have those discussions tonight. I understand that sexual assault is something that is very common, unfortunately, in a lot of women. I think the statistic is like 3 in 4 women have been sexually assaulted or raped, and so me being one of those survivors, I just want to let you all know that I want to be sensitive to that tonight. And also want to share like a little bit of my testimony, how I read this before and I was very much, I was just like, yeah, Simeon Levi justified. No one could tell me, because I wish people would have acted like this when this happened to me. But like, as I read it, like 5 years later, reading it, and y'all was really showing me some things and how like it what happened to Dana may have not been the type of rape that we see in Western society happen, but
Mhm.
a different type of rape culturally, in the sense of she went about the marriage process in a wrong way. But again, I'm ready to talk about this with you guys so we can kind of like just really dive deep into like this story of what happened with Dinah and the men of Shechem, and then like Simeon and Levi's reaction and Jacob's reaction to all the things. It's a lot of like deep stuff, and I just want to be intentional about the conversation that we're having, because not everyone may be in a space to want to talk about these types of topics. So I did want to put that warning out there before we go into this evening. All right, so Genesis 33, we're going to start with Jacob meeting Esau. We kind of talked about it a little bit last night. I mean, not last night, last week,
Mhm.
and how Sister Rachel pointed out how Jacob was doing all these shenanigans, doing all this pre-planning and all this making maneuvers and backup plans and plan A, B, C, and D in case Esau wanted to like kill him and wipe out all of his family. Um, but not he wasn't really trusting in that Yah was gonna cover him. And so we're gonna see that like he did all of this and Esau was just ready to forgive him. And so, um, verse 1, Jacob looked up, and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. So Jacob divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two female servants. He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the back. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. Who are these with you? He asked. Jacob answered, They are the children Elohim has graciously given your servant. Then the female servants and their children approached and bowed down. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they bowed down too. Esau asked, What's the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met? To find favor in your eyes, my lord, he said. But Esau said, I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. Jacob said, No, please. If I have found favor in your sight, accept this gift from me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of Elohim. Now that you have received me favorably, please accept the present that was brought to you. For Elohim has been gracious to me, and I have all I need. And because Jacob insisted, Esau accepted. So I want to pause there and just go over some of the notes that kind of like stuck out to me in this, kind of what we already talked about. But like literally, Jacob was doing all this preparation and formality to show this deep humility, as if he was approaching a king, just for Esau to simply embrace him as his brother, as his kindred, as his beloved family. And so the word they wept, I broke it down. It was like he wept with joy, with relief, with release, in the sense of like the anguish, the fear, and the guilt of the deepest hurts is non existent when forgiveness has its way in our hearts. And so forgiveness is literally the act of opening our hands to release the pain so we can behold the glory of Yahuwah. Um, and so with our hands raised, I wrote down wept, and it was like, hey, calf, bet. And it really looks like a man with his arms raised, palms open, in like the tent floor being of the house. And so like this, like grieving, weeping, whether crying, whether you're crying in grief, humility, or joy, you cannot weep if you are holding on to something tightly.
Yeah.
To weep is to literally to release. And so we have to literally open our hands. And you can't raise your hands and praise the Father if your hands are closed. And so like it's literally this picture of like my hands are up, I'm crying, I'm letting it go, I'm laying it before the tent, the house of the Father, to release it. And so clearly Esau and Jacob had their own separate moments where they had released things. So they were able to literally embrace each other in this symbol of their forgiveness, of their letting go of the anger and the guilt and the pain that they caused each other, and vice versa. So they could literally be brothers again. So yeah, I think for me it was really beautiful to see that like Jacob is seeing that Esau sees him as his brother and just wants to love him again. But he's thinking this whole time like, oh my gosh, I got to prepare for my angry brother who's going to try to fight me. And that wasn't the case at all.
I just like the pureness of it because I think like this is the first time that Jacob and Esau are having an interaction without like background noise, not coercion from the mom, not other people, the family. And again, they're twins. And I can tell you, like watching my twins, their, inner bond. But at the same time, too, Jacob is very cautious. Like I feel like when like we said last week, his shenanigans he was doing, like maybe if he wasn't postured right, his brother wouldn't have received him that way. But they're both in the wept I see is the anticipation of still like love and brotherhood, right? One doesn't want the other one to think nothing bad. They both equally are anxious for this to turn out because they care at that level. They really, really, really care. And they're both pushing and pulling, like, no, I'm here to serve you. And he's like, no, 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 I have enough. Like, I just want to love you. So they're both pushing and going back and forth, saying, let me do this for you. I love you type of thing. But I just think about the confusion from the mom, about how they ended up in that state. And this is pure between them two. And this is as men, not from the childhood stuff as their youth, as men.
What's that scripture that says, when I was a child, I thought like a child, but now that I'm grown, oh, if someone
Mm-hmm.
can remember where that's from, please put it in the chat so we can add it to the notes because I do want to put that scripture in. Thank you, because Taryn brought that thing out about like they're meeting each other again as grown adults.
Mm-hmm.
The last time they saw each other, they weren't kids, but they were like young adults. They were probably
Mm-hmm.
they were young, like 20 is still young. 25 is still like young in mindset and whatnot. Still the influence of, like she said, the influence of a mother is not there now. So now it's just them on their own terms, making a decision on how they're going to interact with each other. Thank you, Dominique. Paris
I got
said,
it. Corinthians.
I'm not sure about the 400, sis. I'm not sure about that. I never really tied it to like the prophecy about the 400 years of slavery, but I do know that the number 400 or four in a sense shows like something being like squared off or being like complete or something happening. So it could mean something of like the completion of a thing, because Yah does move in numbers, he does move in patterns, so that'd be something that we could probably do like another like inquiry on, but I haven't really looked at it that way. I haven't taken the time to actually like study it in that sense. Paris also
Mm-hmm.
said, also I think it's really interesting or beautiful because at the end of the day, they grew up together. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
mom can plant seeds and not good ones. And it's like they still have an attachment to each other. The weeping was just like the hurt coming out, but the love coming forward. Yes, very nice. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna copy that and put that in
Well
the
said. That was well said, Paris.
yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally putting that in the notes right here. Okay. Let me see. In First Corinthians, when I was a
Yep.
child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that is the scripture I was talking about.
That is good.
Another thing too in this is, you know, he spent so much time getting worked up about what he thought was going to happen. And,
Mhm.
you know, the word tells us to be anxious for nothing. And so
Yep.
he got into all of these feelings and whatever, and it didn't even play out like that. And so, you know, that's fear. And Abba has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power and love and a sound mind. And so
Mhm.
his mind wasn't even sound at this time. He was just in so much fear, anticipating something that didn't even manifest. His brother was happy to see him. He was like, "Oh, that's all water under the bridge. Let's move on." You know, and so we can be like that. We can anticipate something, you know, get worked up, get anxious and in fear and everything about a situation. And it can take us to a place in our head that doesn't even manifest, you know, when it all plays out. And so, you know, we just have to be careful of that thing, and take it to Abba and allow him to settle us down in our ruach so that we don't get over into that place of, you know, anxiousness.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, Coach, because I've been seeing something on Facebook, and I think it's very like relevant to this thing about anxiousness. People have been sharing like this post about like all the different anxiety and depression medications that they're on, and to just be mindful that some of your friends or family are dealing with anxiousness. And I was just like, this is such a play of the enemy, and so many people are trapped in this. They are literally in bondage to the spirit of like fear and anxiety and like depression, not realizing that it is a spiritual attack. And to not be okay with just accepting, oh, this diagnosis of I have high anxiety, or taking this, or accepting this diagnosis of, oh, I deal with depression, I will always be depressed. Like these are the type of things that I was seeing all over the internet, and I was just like, y'all says that we are supposed to have, like, we're not supposed to be anxious, we're not supposed to fear, we're supposed to have peace and a sound mind, but yet there's this other identity that is literally trying to attach itself to us and tell us to move in a way where our mind will constantly create scenarios to keep us in an anxious state.
Yeah.
I think a couple of months ago, T had mentioned something about like when we do that, that is literally giving the enemy reins of our mind. She broke it down in a way of just like, if Yahuwah is the one that has reign of our heart and our mind, when we take the reins out of Yah's hand and we put it in our own hands to create scenarios and ideas or way that we think things are going to happen in our life, and we start having these mental plays and these mental like game plans, and it brings us anxiousness and anxiety. She's like, that's the devil. Like it's really simple. Like that's not of Yah for us to literally put ourselves in a state where we are constantly overthinking and like coming up with these what if scenarios over and over and over again, you know? And I was just like, wow. Go ahead, Desi.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute. So I just wanted to say what spoke to me was the word bow, and it means shamak in Hebrew. And it when I broke it down, it meant like a desire, a need, and then olive means head, unity, and chet, wall of protection. So it was just showing to me that he was coming to, you know, to form unity, because he know he did wrong his brother in the past. And so him bowing, you know, was just him showing his sign of respect. And then seven, you know, seven is completion. Like you said, Yahuwah works in numbers and patterns. And so for him and for his children and his wives and the handmaidens, they all bowed to show respect, even though they had nothing to do with everything that happened in the past. But I just thought that was, you know, that he was coming to mend fences, but like
Mhm.
I already worked that all out. And so Esau wasn't even on that level that he thought his brother was going to be on. Esau was not even there. So that's just what stood out to me.
That's good, Desi.
Yeah, can you
Oh,
put that in the notes?
That is a good note. Yeah.
Can you put those in the notes, Desi? Please.
Yes, I had it in there.
Okay. And if you can't figure it out, you should just be able to like copy and paste it in like our working shareable note. But if not, you can text to me and I'll add it in there. But that was something that I kept seeing too, was just like this
Mm,
us thinking or assuming that someone's gonna be on some kind of time and they're not.
mhm.
And I think for me, it's something that I'm constantly always like catching myself or checking myself for, where it's like, okay, Father, if I say this, they're gonna react like this. He's like, you don't know that. Like he's always saying, like, you don't know that, you don't know that. He's always checking me, like, you're assuming that if when I tell you to give this word, or if I tell you to say something to this person, that they're gonna react like this because they've always reacted like that. Like me trying to make what a hypothesis on how someone is going to react based on how they reacted in the past. But Yah's like, when I'm in the midst, you're not going to know how someone's going to react because the past should be non-existent to you. Like you shouldn't formulate your future on past incidents.
Yeah.
And I think it's something how Yah's like, he puts all of our sins in the sea of forgetfulness, but when we're trying to figure out how things are going to go, we bring up the
Yeah.
sins of the past to formulate how we think something's going to happen in the future. And y'all's like, you can't use that logic with me.
Yeah.
And it's
We
just
anticipate. Yeah. Mhm.
right. We anticipate, and he's still working that understanding in me. And it's a hard thing to unlearn and relearn, but I'm like staying true to the course. But it's a constant lesson of like, you cannot foresee how something's going to happen based on how it happened before. And I
Right.
think that's also like a trigger response or like a trauma response to how we move in life a lot of times, where Yah's calling you to move like this, but it goes against all of your past experiences. And Yah's like, I'm creating a new experience for you that you cannot lean on your own understanding. And it's like,
Yeah.
that is the root of not leaning. You cannot look to the past. You cannot look to how things happened before to how Yah wants to use you in this new part of your life. And it's just
But
like, wow.
but that's why it's uncomfortable, because it's the unknown. And with Jacob or Israel right now, he's in submission though. And even as we say that, the angels go before us, Yah has gone before us, but that's if you do the right things. You still got to be obedient. You got to be repentant. You have to be pure, like he was seeking all of that stuff the right way. So yes, he didn't know that's the control factor. I would say that from a type A, like it's not a fear of the bad happening, it's you don't know what's going to happen, right? But if you're God's chosen person, you're Yah's good treasure, right? And but again, he was submissive, and he totally was trying to do it with everything. He didn't cut corners, he didn't cheat, he didn't, the reverence that he was given, all that respect, he wanted to do it right. Therefore, Yah rewarded him the right way. That's that change of heart, we talked about too. And maybe it wasn't even a change of heart. Maybe that was always Esau's heart of hearts, to love his brother. We're thinking a change, but maybe it was his heart of hearts. But the bowing, the submission, I like all of that. But it's just like he was head on with, like, determined to give his all with the reverence and respect too.
Yeah. I like that. What was the next part? Oh, he insisted. Okay. In verse 12, so 33, verse 12. Then Esau said, let us be on our way. I'll accompany you. But Jacob said to him, my Lord knows that the children are tender and I must care for the ewes and the cows and the nursing their young. If they are driven hard just one day, all the animals will die. So let my Lord go on ahead of his servant while I move along slowly at the pace of the flock and herds before me and the pace of the children until I come to my Lord in Seir. Esau said, then let me leave some of my men with you. Why do that? Jacob asked. Just let me find favor in your eyes, my Lord. So that day Esau started on his way back to Seir. Jacob, however, went to Sukkot, where he built a place for himself and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place is called Sukkot. After Jacob came from Padan Aram, he arrived safely in the city of Shechem in Canaan, and camped within the site of the city. For 100 pieces of silver, he bought some of the son of Hamor, the father of Shechem, the plot of ground where he pitched his tent. There he set up an altar and called it El Elohe Yasharel. And so obviously the thing that stuck out first was Sukkot, like Sukkoting, building a tabernacle, dwelling in the tents, like and this is the first time I ever saw it outside of like the feast days. And I was like, huh, okay, like, you know, we're getting a picture of like what it means to Sukkot, and he's like dwelling here. But I think for me, reading this last part of this chapter, I was like, in my mind, I was questioning, like, why didn't he want Esau to like leave some men with him? And so like I have these unanswered questions. And so I don't know what maybe questions or insights you had when you guys were reading this part, but for me, I was just like, well, why didn't he want the help of Esau? And that was kind of just like my only question, you know. Would you guys have any thoughts when y'all were reading this last part of 33?
For me, I thought it was about, like, again, he's finally in his own manhood. Like, he's been up under the house or the covering of all these other people, his parents, you know, some connection through his father of family. He's coming from Laban's house, but his own right now. So he doesn't have a desire, just like he doesn't need covering. He's standing in his own. He's had that discussion with Yah now. He's met him face to face, right? And so I think the fulfillment of reconciling with his brother was what he needed. It's not necessarily, you know, like, and he's still posturing himself to say, where is Yah sending me? But he can check that off the list now that he made right with his brother. So now he's kind of in a space of like, I just want to hear, you know, what's the next step? Like, he's supposed to do his own self. Nobody else dictating him. Nobody else drawing him. Nobody like, hey, this sounds like a good idea. So I see it as him standing in his own.
That's good, Taryn. I kind of saw that the same way. I was like, he was like, I don't need no help no more. I'm good. You know, I got this. You know, I was able to give you all these things. I gave you all these gifts. And like you said, he was postured and ready to receive whatever correction. You know, he bowed himself down. And I'm really, did she put that explanation in there for that bow down? Because I had a thought when she said it, but I kind of lost it. Bow humbly.
I'm adding it now. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. But yeah, that was real good.
You know, that actually makes a lot of sense that they mentioned that, you know, he turned down Esau's help because he's standing in his own. And as soon as he did that, he tabernacled, he dwelled in the tent of Yahuwah. Like, that's the whole picture of tabernacle. So that makes sense culturally, and the way that we know Yah illustrates and he speaks to us. He's literally telling Esau, no, I'm good. I'm about to pitch my tent here. I'm about to tabernacle with Yah here. He's with me. And I'm naming this place literally that the Elohim of Israel is the Elohim. Like that's what El-Hoi means. I think I wrote it down on here. Yeah, the Elohim of Israel is Elohim. He set up that altar and he named it that in the place where he was Sukkoting or tabernacling. So I think that's like the perfect picture, and that helped me get an understanding of why he turned down Esau's help. You know, me and my, you know, earthly mind, like, you need to get all the help you can get, but clearly Yah's doing a thing where he's literally trying to show Jacob, I have you, you don't need any help. Like, I'm helping you make these amendments and this forgiveness and this, and letting you know that your brother is okay with you here. So now, like I told you before, when you wrestled, that you have found favor in the eyes of man and Elohim. And so you should move that way and dwell with me knowing that. And so, like, in this part right here where it says, and like he set up an altar and called it the Elohim of Israel is Elohim, we are finally seeing Jacob, who is now called Israel, claim Yahuwah as his personal Elohim. We see the establishment of belonging to Yahuwah through the experience he had to have, the building of faith in the clearing of ways and wrestling with Yahuwah which is literally what the picture of tabernacling is. It's like you are established with Yah. You are dwelling with Yah. And so I think it's so beautiful and poetic that, however, it says Jacob, however, went to Sukkot, to tabernacle, where he built a place for himself. And it's really like showing that like he built this place, for himself with the experience that he had with Yah. Like he can live in this experience. He knows the experience like the back and front of his hand.
As a reflection.
Yeah.
Because he's been moving and running and transitioning, and like now, imagine the emotional baggage and just how he needs to be built back up too. Because like, what's next? Again, what's next? Before he was running from the father-in-law, and then, well, first he was working for the wives, trying to get that. Then he was running from the father-in-law. Then he had fear of seeing his brother, but now he gets to sit and rest in that. Tanya's been talking about that like for a week or two, just sit and rest. She was like, just to sit and kind of right there. So, you can be filled or restored or renewed and things like that.
And that's literally like, that's how every time Tabernacles comes around, like that is what has been that's the understanding that Yah has continued like gradually deepen with me. He's like, tabernacling with me is rest. Like when we read the prophets, it talks about like, he keeps talking about this covenant of peace that he's going to make with us. I've been reading Ezekiel this week, and Ezekiel's prophesying about what Yah's going to do for Israel after he judges all the nations. He's like, I will bring you into my covenant of peace, and you will have rest and all these other things. Like you will tabernacle with me. And it's like, the whole understanding of tabernacles is to be in this renewed covenant of shalom. And it's like, we're seeing Israel, Jacob, experience this peace finally when he like Sukkoth. And it's not going to last very long because now we're getting into chapter 34. Okay, chapter 34.
I'll read, Samaria.
Okay.
Chapter 34. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born to Jacob. How far you want me to go? To what verse?
You can actually stop at verse 2.
Okay. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and violated her.
Okay, I don't know why it didn't copy all of my 34, so I'm about to add it in here now. I don't know what was going on. I tried to copy and paste. Okay, give me 1 second, y'all.
Was it that one verse that I had sent you?
No, it was like when I was looking at our notes, the notes that I shared. Okay, here they are.
Okay. I was about to say, because I never got the other notes that you said you shared with me. I never saw any.
No, I shared them on Zoom. They're on here.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So 34. And so we're gonna just do these first 2 verses because we want to break down. She went out to see the daughters of the land. And so that whole went out to see literally means that she went forth from her father's house to experience, to perceive, to consider how the women of the other nation lived. And so Akoti Latanya pointed out how Proverbs 5 relates to Dinah in this sense, to where like Yah warns us to not even go near the house of the wicked. And we know that Yah had told Israel to not make marriages, to not mingle with the Canaanites. But yet in this first chapter, we're seeing Dinah went out of her way to go and to see how the daughters of the land basically lived. And it says like, let not your way be far from her, and do not go to the door of her house. Avoid even being near the place of temptation. And so that was like the first thing that popped out. I was like, oh, she went out to see. So I really wanted to like break down what the word see meant in Hebrew and what the word out means. And so the word seeing is not just she went to go look. It's like, it's kind of like the kind of look that Eve looked at the apple. Like when she saw the apple and she saw that it was good for food, and she made her own decision on what she, even though like Yah told her, don't eat this thing, she's looking at it and she decided that, oh, it's good for food, even though the opposite was commanded of her. And so in the sense of like, even looking at something too long spikes your temptation to move towards, I'm not just gonna look at it. Now I want to experience it. I want to taste and see it for myself. It was kind of like that whole went out to sea.
And she shouldn't have been in that place anyway. You know, we weren't supposed to, you know, culturally, she shouldn't have been over there with those people in the place that she was in, you know?
Yeah. And Paris pointed out the thing about Lot's wife, like not looking back, like Lot's wife, the heart, like wanting it, desiring it, like desiring a place in a thing that Yah had already said not to be like a part of.
Yeah, set
You know
apart.
that, what'd you say?
I was like, yeah, set apart.
Yeah,
You know?
set apart. Like you had no business being there.
Absolutely.
Right. No, literally, like I was thinking, I was like, what is she doing? Like, you have no business being over there. But like, when I tell you, like me back in 2020 reading this, I would have never saw it this way because I was reading it from a very like hurt, broken space. As someone who has survived rape, I was looking at this like, nope, like whatever they said rape, but I wasn't Hebraically reading the word rape. I wasn't breaking down what culturally it meant and like how Yah sees these things. So we're gonna get into like what Deuteronomy and Exodus says about like situations and what qualifies as rape in the sense of you were forced, or raped as in the sense of you lay down and you stayed over there after it happened. Like you didn't try to go get help. You didn't tell anybody what happened to you. Like you were taken. What'd you say, Paris?
Oh, Paris was going. Is she talking? Or she's typing. Like this week I've been studying about kind of like bloodlines, right? And I would say it just like with you too. First of all, she was out by herself, uncovered. And everything in their family was very specific and intentional. Like even with Rachel and Leah, their father was, you know, covering them. Like he had to give permission, X, Y, Z. She goes out. Who knew she was out in the streets? And as a mother, I'm gonna tell you, like you thinking about all that. But then too, if I think about steal, kill, and destroy, or just deter you from your destiny, she goes out, but the enemy sends somebody immediately to go snatch her up. I mean, that thing was immediate then. So even from your mental space, how you're hearing from God and the healing and stuff has happened, but it's the fact that something came to try to attack your destiny and your bloodline. And you know, like warfare, you see so much stuff in the spirit for your kids, and like you don't think about it like that. And I've had discussions with my kids because you sit, and even me as a child, I'm just like, I wonder how come I didn't get into certain stuff. Well, maybe I wasn't a threat for things to be attacking me. But you know, now I feel like where I am in my place, you know, for ministry or different things like that, like I'm always trying to cover my kids for what's trying to come attack them. So she goes out by herself, right? And then yeah, it looks shiny, it's pretty, I want to see, and get snatched up, right? And I also think about that because like I got girls and boys. And yeah, so sometimes if we're going out and then the boys want to come jump up and you know, crack some heads out there in the street for some stuff, you know, or their daddy, you know, because my husband has told my daughter, now I'm gonna go get a gun and go to jail because you out here not thinking about what you're doing, because that's how it's gonna happen. Like that's what he say, you know. So, but she's uncovered. She can't be moving and being out anywhere, you know. Covering is what I keep hearing. Covering, you know, it's so important to make sure you're right. And everything they did as a family, they were covered and very specific, you know, up until how Jacob got his wife for going to go see family and don't go here and don't go there. So she out and about and don't nobody know what's going on with her.
Right.
And sorry, so I'm new. Paris brought me. I'm Trisha.
Hey, Trisha.
Today is my first day joining you ladies.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I just wanted to add to what you said, because what really rang to me was knowing that the scripture says, like, you should not like leave any room for the devil, because any room you give, he's a roaring
Yeah,
lion looking to see who he's going to devour. So sometimes even when we think that, oh, this is really nothing, this is, for him, every opportunity is taken, like, and it's taken with force. So like, to back to what you're saying too, like even being covered, I have 3 girls too. So even with the whole being covered and all that stuff, I'm like, especially like with modern day today and the thinking and what's going on, and what they think is power, really it's not. The ability to just expose yourself and to think that you have power because, oh, this person is in the wrong for touching me, because, well, just because I'm wearing this doesn't mean it gives you a pass. Yeah, you're right, but at the same time, like, you could have helped the matter. You know what I mean? Like, this idea of,
absolutely.
me, and it's my body and it's my, technically it's not, because, well, we all know it's really not. But like, at the same time, whatever you give room to, if it is not God, there's only 2 things: God or the devil. So if it is not God, it's going to be the opposite. So you have to be very intentional, right? And what we take lightly is an opportunity for the enemy.
Mhm. That's so, so true. Cause like literally like that immediately, like Taryn was saying, because it says in verse 2, when Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, the ruler of the area, saw her, he took her and raped her. So like he saw it, his eyes lusted for her, he immediately acted on his fleshly desire from what he saw. And
Hmm.
even then, we know that she wasn't out wearing what the girls be wearing today. You know that Dinah was just probably just a beautiful girl. Well, we don't know if she adjusted the way that she wore her turban or the way that she adjusted how she wore her tunic. We don't know what happened when Dinah went to see how the women of the city lived. But we
Right.
do know that he saw her, even if it was just her face and how beautiful she was, or if it was just like he could see like a little bit of her figure in her too, whatever it was, he saw her, he liked it immediately. He probably recognized that she's not from around here. It's a different taste for me. Like, I know this is something I never had before. I want this and I'm lusting after it.
Hmm.
And so like literally he is, and then like it says in his heart he was drawn to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman. We know it's not love, because this is not what Yah calls love. This is what Yah calls lust.
But
To see something, to want it, and to physically like do fornication based off what you saw with your eyes, that's not lust. I mean, that's not love at all. And so yeah, it's this was really, this was hard for me to read years ago. And as I was reading it these last few years, again, y'all was really showing me like situations that I've put myself in as as a young girl. Some I put myself in, some I didn't. But either way, he was showing me the differences of just like, this happened to you because you were already outside of my house. Like, he was real, like when he was healing me from like the hurt and the trauma of being sexually assaulted and raped, he was like, Samaria, like I'm not saying this to shame you or to hurt you, but I need you to understand what it looked like when you stepped out of my house, when you decided to be rebellious, when you decided to go to that club, when you decided to get drunk, when you decided to get high around these men that you did not know, when you decided to wear that low cut top and them short, and when you decided to wear these things and get drunk and put all your guards down and be open and be vulnerable. The things that happened to you was because you were so out of line with my protection, because you were so outside of my house. There are things that you opened yourself up to, that because I'm an Elohim that respects your decisions and the things that you decide that you want to do, because I'm not someone that's going to force my will on you. You decided, and you decided to go into an area full of wolves, devils, and demons, and then be surprised that those demons and devils hurt you. And it like, and I tell you, it was a type of humbling and crying and mourning where my father was telling me these things. He's like, you have to take, not that I'm accountable for what the men did. He's like, I need you to understand your portion and your hurt and how trauma happened to you because you didn't know me, or because you weren't surrendered to me. And it was like, when I tell you, like, I'm so healed from it. I'm thankful that Yah was able to speak with me in such a way that he was like, okay, you're mature enough now that we can really walk through what happened to you in your past. And it was like, reading this again, I was like, I've been a Dinah. Not where I didn't stay with the man. Like, oh, actually, we'll get into that another day. But like, she stayed in this man's house. She stayed in his tent. She actually never tried to get back to her father's house. So it's just all these different like situations that we're gonna read about more as we talk about Dinah and the whole situation. But it's just like, for some of us, when rape or sexual assault happens to us, we run away immediately. We go back to our father's house, we go back to our apartment, we cry, we mourn, and we cover it up and we act like nothing happened. Right. But in this situation, we're not really seeing that type of action, and so like I just want us to read this and not be so like, dang, Dinah, you shouldn't have did that, but like look at it and be like, when have I been a Dinah? Like
Right.
maybe, by the grace of y'all, you weren't raped or you weren't molested or you weren't taken advantage of. But there have been situations where you put yourself in a situation like Dinah did, where you were outside of the father's house, outside
There
of his
you go.
obedience,
And not protecting your gift.
and not protecting your gift.
Yeah, naturally we like, well, it's not that bad, but for all the other things, because again, there's tons of background noise trying to come snatch your destiny, and you don't see the seeds that they're planting for that. So for her, she could have been starstruck because he was a prince of the county, right? Or the son of a prince. And it says he was gentle with her, but she might have thought she could go out and hit the jackpot and, whatever. It just wasn't in order. It wasn't approved from her
Right.
father.
Right.
She was
That's-
totally outside of where she was supposed to be because for one, she wasn't supposed to be intermingling with
Out. That's right.
in the first place.
Yep.
One, she never should have been over there in that neighborhood. She should have been back over at the house somewhere, but she was over there trying to see how the other half lived.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you want to dabble your toe over into
Mhm.
something. You suffer the consequences of dabbling your toe. Now, and not to, take away from, people being assaulted and all this kind of stuff. But like Samaria said, as we read more in the story, we don't even see that she cried out.
Mm-hmm.
Or, people were trying to, her brothers, well, we'll read on into that in a minute.
But before we get into it really quickly, something else came out too. And this was just to clarify, because I've had to speak this with a few people in regards to getting the confusion when that when you have sex and you lay down with someone that's considered marriage. And in here it states there that it's not. That the defiling was done before and that he was asking for her hand, that he wanted to wife her,
Afterwards. Yeah.
after the fact. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's where when you lay with somebody, that's not your spouse.
Right.
There's still a process, like you said, there's an order in which you have to go to in order to have that particular that covenant.
Right. And
Yeah,
that's why Paris mentioned it in the chat, because we were going to talk
Soul
about
tie.
it further. Though. A soul tie.
Mhm.
Like literally,
Correct, the soul tie.
like his spirit clave unto her because they did this, what's the word? This prohibited deed that's only supposed to be in a marriage covenant. They did it outside of a marriage covenant. So the spiritual ramifications of this man literally cleaving to her, because it says, because that word cleave is the same. A man shall leave his father and mother's house and cleave to his wife.
Mm-hmm.
His soul shouldn't have been cleaving to Dinah at all, because they weren't married. They did the act of marriage without marriage. So that's what creates the soul tie, because soul, the word soul means flesh, means like your base nature. So your base nature is attached to this other person's base nature, but there's no spiritual anchoring in Yah when you create a soul tie, because it's literally based off of your feelings, your emotions, your flesh, your passions, and your desires, which are out of order already, like y'all said, outside of the proper order.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And I know we're going to read further in, but I know, I can't remember, someone just said in regards to not necessarily that she was raped, it was just a situation where you went into, you go on the streets, you get what the streets has to offer you. You see what I'm saying? And you kind of just take it up, and that's just what it is. It was, consensual, not what you wanted when you realized it, but you kind of got stuck in it. And I know a lot of us have put ourselves in that position where we knew it wasn't right, but we went to the street, we got what we asked for, and then we were like, oh man, this ain't really what I wanted. So
Exactly. That is so true. Okay, Coach Latan, you want to pick up and maybe stop at verse 7?
Okay, so 4, start with 4.
You can start at 3.
Okay. So his soul was strongly attracted to Dinah, and the daughter of Jacob, I'm sorry, and he loved the young woman, and he spoke kindly to the young woman. So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this young woman as a wife." And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with his livestock in the field, so Jacob held his peace until they came. Then Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved and very angry because he had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter.
And my thing has it added on. It says a thing that should not have been done.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. A thing that should not have been done. Yeah. To 8, you want me to go to 8? But Hamor spoke with him, saying, "The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife."
Okay. Yeah, that's a good place to stop. Ooh, okay. So again, like we talked about that soul tie thing, we're kind of getting more information about that now, about this soul is cleaving, this soul is yearning. All of these very deeply passionate conversations or words are being used to describe why Shechem, or Hamor's son, is in this, like, I need her, I have to have her. Where, like, you know, in our ignorance when we were young, thinking that love equated to lust, or why even in society they push this obsessed narrative, like, I want my man or my wife to be obsessed with me. I'm like, okay, but like, is that healthy? Is that Yah field? Because in this situation we're seeing that it's not. And we even talked about, like, so I did break down the word rape, and I broke down heart because I want us to really like see these different terms in the word cleave. So like the word rape in Hebrew is to afflict, oppress, humble, to be afflicted, or to be bowed down. And then again, we talked about heart and soul, meaning like the appetite, your mind, your desires, your emotions, your passions. And so that's what was his heart yearned for her, or his appetite, his desires yearned for her, not like his actual heart. And then I put like for soul ties, cleave, to stick to overtake. So the fact that he's like, I need her. When you're in a soul tie, it like your desires, your flesh literally overtakes you and is now the driving force of your decisions, which is why it's so dangerous. And I put the word, when Jacob heard that his daughter had been defiled. So our understanding of defilement should be in the fact that because Dinah did this thing, or because this thing happened to Dinah, she is now considered unclean. She is impure sexually, religiously, ceremonially. Like, not the fact that she had sex out of marriage, but also the fact that this man is uncircumcised. And we know how Yah feels about the circumcision. We broke that down earlier when we talked about when Yah told Abraham to circumcise himself and all the men of his house, and how circumcision helps protect the woman as well. Like, circumcision of the man's penis literally protects the spouse. It protects the wife because it stops her from getting infections and all kinds of other things. So it's just like, she not only laid down outside of marriage, she also laid down, she was unclean in the physical and spiritually. So she went out with no covering. Then she got with the man who couldn't cover her. She went out uncovered, and then she ended up getting a man who couldn't cover her. And I'm just like, for me, that's like
a whole mouthful right there.
It's a whole mouthful. It's like, right, when we go out uncovered. I remember I have dated some men who could not cover me. I was like, yeah, this man can't even pray for me. He's like, I never told you to go over there. You went with your little uncovered tail over there because you wanted a man so bad, and the devil sent you somebody who hit all your checklists, and he talked about God a little bit, and you thought, oh, this is a man of God, and now you praying, you like, I need a man that can pray for me. You feel lack in this relationship because you were never supposed to be there.
Keep talking, keep talking, sis.
Can't be covered when you go out and find a man, because that's not our job. He who finds a wife. So if you out here going out looking uncovered for somebody to cover you, it's impossible. You're out of order.
Mhm.
You are not going to find a man that can cover you because you went out to look, and that's not your role.
Hallelujah. And just to testify to that, when my track record is pretty long. So, and the one question I had to ask, and this is what I share with my Kingdom moms that are going through the journey of understanding where the root of everything comes from, because that's what we have to get down to, is the root.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's where the healing comes in at. And so I asked one question. I said, were any of the men and that I ever been with, were they ever followers of the Most High? And the answer to that was no, not one of them. And I said, and that right there, it just speaks volume to just us as a whole, women who are currently unmarried. When you are going and you are having men approach you, trying to get to know you, if he's not seeking the Most High in a spirit of truth, and exactly like sis said, where he's not capable of even covering you in that ability, leave him alone. Put him right back where you found him, because that's it. It's just not going to work. It won't work, until he himself has been transformed and delivered to become the man that Yah created him to be.
Yeah.
So this is just speaking volume to that as well.
There's a scripture, again, I'm gonna ask y'all to help me find it, but I don't know it like verbatim, but it's about like a man who basically mistreats his wife, like his prayers are hindered.
Yes.
And so it's just like all these things come into play, which is why the circumcision of the man's like privy parts is intentional and metaphorical for the circumcision of the heart. Because if there's a man that's not circumcised, and I'm not talking about his penis anymore, I'm talking about if this man is not circumcised in his heart,
Yes.
Yeah.
he's not circumcised in his heart, he won't be able to cover you. Because a man with a circumcised heart understands the severity and the seriousness of being close and cleaving to the Most High, so his prayers can be heard, because his circumcision is so important and imperative for the entirety of covering his house. And
But yeah. But even for her, she has no clue the depth of this whole connection, right? Like kids and parenting again, but the guy, he had no self-control. He just jumped and wanted what he wanted and just gotta have it. And and now his daddy is standing there saying, well, this is what he wants, and probably again because they're affluent or whatnot, and you just give them what you want and you're not seeing the bigger implications of it. So Jacob also has to look at what's trying to enter his bloodline. Like this is something, we talk about sons and the blessing that's on the sons all the time, and how we reverence that. But his daughter, like that's a whole new, we haven't seen that before on how to seek help or guidance or whatever, because she just going with the flow, don't have no clue or whatever. But dude don't have no self-control. You talking about covering, he don't have no self-control, period.
Right. And then another thing that when you brought that out about, like, for me, I was like, this is Jacob's only daughter. Like, why is he so quiet? Like, reading this again, even before when I wasn't healed and I was just angry and hurt and just like, couldn't see past the word rape, but as I'm going back over it again, like my question is still the same. Like, why does Jacob feel the need to hold his peace? But his sons are like righteously
turn up. That's right.
Like, what?
They ready to turn up.
Why was you quiet? Like, why, Jacob, why, Israel, did you not feel inclined to say, we will not make marriages with you, and you have been out of order? If your son really wanted to marry my daughter, he should have came to me first before laying with her. Like, all these things, like, I'm not like, why did he feel the need to be quiet and defer basically his leadership over to the sons, who took it in their own hands because they saw that their dad was kind of slack in how he was going about the situation. I was just like, is this Jacob talking or is this Israel talking? Because Jacob has a propensity for fearing man.
Yes.
Jacob has a propensity for cowering or being concerned about what other people think. Israel is the one that wrestles with Elohim and has favor with man and Elohim. And so I was just like, which version of this man are we seeing in this situation?
But if Israel did that out of fear, though, right? He did that out of fear, out of hunger for that. But that wouldn't have been that thing that if it was a boy, you wouldn't have to. Like if you're standing there and everybody like, oh, I got it, you let them go. You don't have to get all worked up. So if they were already kind of the sons carrying that temperament, he wouldn't have to, like, out of protection for his daughter, because it was already going down. I mean, it do sound like that would be his temperament, because the sons are like, I'll handle it. And, you know, you don't have to go through the emotions then if they're already got, you know.
If they're already at that level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like,
but as a father, though, can you really honestly say, even though, you know, the brothers are worked out, that's your baby. That's your baby daughter, your only baby daughter, that you wouldn't have no emotions?
No, see, mine go ham, though.
Karen's husband was like, if I go get this gun and you step out of line, it's gonna be the daddy.
Yeah, mine gonna hit. He
right.
Gonna 100 quick, and we gotta talk them off and get the details and something, and like, yeah, before anybody even hear the story, it's handled. Yeah. So, but that's out of anger and fear. So maybe too, this is the wisdom of him walking, you know, that far. He's trying to take it in. He's pausing a little bit, you know.
So when you said about attacking the daughter, because again, this is his only daughter, you know, and because we don't see like what would have righteously happened for Dinah, maybe y'all would have been like, go out, or maybe y'all would have presented a husband to Dinah that was a righteous man from the line of Shem somewhere, but we don't get to see. We don't get to see that because of the out of orderness here, but we do know that y'all had a promise for like the daughters of Sarah. Like it was like, you know, Abraham, you're gonna be, you know, a king of many nations, and Sarah, out of her womb will come, you know, princes and whatnot. But like out of that same womb came this daughter. And so it's just like there is still a mantle, there was still a promise that got corrupted because of the out of orderness. And we don't get to see in this situation what could have been Dinah's portion if she would have stayed in her father's house.
Paris put in here, we also don't know how she was before this, and was she maybe a rebellious daughter before this, where her father wasn't surprised. And Samaria and I kind of talked about this a little bit, because she did not leave. You know, if you're raped, you know, if somebody takes you, she was still in that house. You know, when we read along further, you will see that she remained in that house. Why would you stay, you know, in that situation, you know? And it's all speculation. Like, you know, we don't see anything that says anything, but she stayed there. It wasn't like she cried out like we talked about before or anything. And so it just, you know, leaves room to question again, you know, about this rebelliousness. You know, she went over there because that's what she wanted to do, and she did what she did, you know. I don't know.
Or her curiosity, right, sis? Like, you know, she was curious enough to see what he looked like, what y'all doing, what y'all, you know, she opened herself up to that, but that might have been her temperament.
Yeah, and we also have to remember that like these people were very human. Like sometimes you kind of have an idea of characters, but they're not characters. Like they're literally you and I that are just in, you know, written out about our lives. And I think when it comes to Jacob and his reaction, I think you have to remember, first of all, he's older, he's wiser, and he has the boys. And the reason I say this is because it could be that he's so hurt and so disappointed that there's not like there isn't much of him to pour. It could also be, like we said, we don't know how her behavior was. Maybe he's poured and poured and poured so much into her, like, don't do this, do this. We don't know none of that. So when it got to this, obviously his only daughter, I'm telling you, it's pain that kept him like that. It's pain. And so when you have older siblings like that, yeah, the boys will get more rowdy. I mean, I could just see it 100%. Like sometimes the father is just more humble, more quiet, but he's in pain. But when
Yeah.
you have older siblings, it's like, okay, my sons will take care of this. Like my sons are the ones that are going to deal with, the in-laws and this and that. But I
Mhm.
think that was just the way he, and being an older, wiser kind of man, like, based on his character and his relationship with the father, I think that's just how he handled and kind of just did that out of pain and disappointment. Because I see it, like my father's the same way. He doesn't talk. Like if something really hurts him like about his favorite child, like it's mind-blowing. Like he'll just stay silent because of pain, and then maybe behind closed doors shed a tear, and then it would be the older siblings that are attacking the situation. So I think we have to kind of put that into perspective too about Jacob.
I think that's, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's so good because like two things out of that literally just reminded me of my own dad. Like number one, like when cause I was worldly, just worldly before I came to the Father. And my dad was never, he's not, I've had y'all pray for him before. He's, he believes, but it was never very strict on me. I wish he was a little stricter. But anyway, when I was 15 years old, he asked me, he's like, "Are you still a virgin?" And I lied to him. I said, "No." No, I'm sorry. I lied to him. I said, "Yes." And then like a couple months later, it all came out. Like my mom found out, it was a huge thing. And she's like, "Call your father and tell him." So I called him and I told him. And I expected him to blow up. Literally all he said was, "Baby girl, I'm so disappointed in you." And he just hung up. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like that hurt me so bad.
Mhm.
I was about to say, I know
And
that broke you, didn't it?
I was like, dang, like you
Mhm.
could have
Yes.
cut, you should have cut me out. Like,
Right.
you lied to me. Like, that's what I was expecting. And then that same dude, because I was with my ex from like 15 to 23. That's who I lost my virginity to. Obviously, with the soul tie and everything, it got so toxic. We moved to Phoenix together where my dad lives, and it was just so toxic toward the end of our relationship. And Sister Patty said something about Jacob being an old man. Me and we were getting into it, and I was like, and that's why my dad gonna beat you up, blah 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 blah. And then my
Mhm.
stepmom was like, your dad is 50 years old. Not that he can't do it, but why are you like with this young man? So that just made me think like, dang, like Jacob didn't know he had older
Mhm.
sons and was just probably like,
Mhm.
I'm too old. Like, I'm an old man, like, but that was just like really, really good. Like the humanity in the scriptures, like it was probably so much going on, so many dynamics that the scripture doesn't expound upon. And that was just
Exactly.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I also
It's so good to put this out here and just discuss it, all the different perspectives and how, like Natalie was just saying, the humanity of it all, because we can sit here and speculate about all the different things because we are operating off of how we feel in this day and age, and the nature and the character of the people during that time was so different. It was so different than how we are now. And so this is really good, y'all.
I'm so glad. I'm so excited to hear. Like I was like I was literally telling the times like I can't wait to talk about this tonight. And it's like I pray that like we're able to like to discuss this without it being like too like of a touchy subject, but that we'll be able to talk about it and just really be honest about like where we are while we're reading this, to not, and also not being able to offend anybody, but to just be ourselves and talk about like, well, this is how I read it. This is what I saw seeing in it, so we can put all the pieces together of how maybe I may have missed that part about Jacob being like older, and me more
Right.
seeing like
Mhm.
even now I'm still like, okay, I see it now. But then I'm also in the back of my head, I'm still looking at verse 33 where that Jacob was the one. Jacob had the first interaction with the sons of Hamor and bought the land from Shechem. So like he bought this land, he gave them money to have this land. So there was already a relationship intact there. And then the next chapter we see that this thing happened later on. So I'm like, there's a whole bunch. There's like,
Mhm.
he's older. He made this business agreement with the people that have this land. He literally bought land from this specific man and son. And now we're seeing like there's this disgrace that's happening. So even if he did in his heart really want to rise up in anger, he's like, I done made business deals with these people. Like I bought the land from this people. And I don't know. I was like, it's all these different conversations coming up. And one other thing I did want to mention was like a pattern that I saw. I know we're not at this part of the Bible yet, but for me, being a daughter, as all of us are daughters, I was like, okay, Jacob reacted very somberly when he heard the news of his daughter being defiled. And then we fast forward to David when his daughter was literally raped by his son. And he reacted in the same way, where he just didn't say anything. He didn't make any amendments. He didn't do any judgments. And by default, the brother of the daughter that was raped took it upon himself to go out and kill his brother who raped his sister. It was not only was it actual rape because she cried out, it was also incest. And then like David being king, leader of his house, did nothing also. And I was like, why do we keep seeing when the situation of defilement of the daughter comes about, the fathers are just like, I'm just so grieved I can't make a righteous judgment. And I'm just like, that just irritates me. I'm just being honest. I was just like, I find myself siding with Levi and Simeon. I find myself siding with Absalom when he was like, all right, something got to happen. Dad, why you not moving? Now I'm mad at, like, it's all these different things, but I know, like, again, giving them grace and humility, but also like, as king of your house, as headship, as protector, those situations are definitely vastly different, right? But I'm just was looking at the reaction of like, both fathers in that situation were just like holding their peace.
So I'm a very reactive person, but like as you broke it down, the two analogies right there, and I think about my husband, I say all the time that, you know, like I'm fussing, and he don't say nothing. He don't say nothing. But then when he do jump in to discipline the kids and stuff, I'm like, oh Lord, don't kill him, right? Because like there's no in between. Like once he clicks and goes into action or whatever. But in both of these instances, this is somebody with no self-control. So if he reacts from a place of anger, right, doesn't have his fleshly emotions intact, right, because it's the reaction, the cause and effect. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, right? But it's still the anger in your heart. So maybe they're not responding because of that piece and trying to get some control because they're uncontrolled. And if you go full speed ahead and you get what you get, I mean, I'm like one of them people who, you know, come straight from the altar, all in revival, and they calling the cops on me. And I'm like, but it wasn't my fault though. They bought it to me. Like I didn't try to do, you know, but you got what you asked for type of thing. So now in this case, they're trying to operate some self-control, some restraint, some, you know, and I see that a lot, like with my husband, when he's like, but I'll be pushed like, how come you not? And, you know, I want to handle right now, but on his time, and hopefully he's mental state and demeanor is the right way to handle the situation. So maybe that's the case with both Jacob and David in that case. Where the mamas at?
And when
we don't see their story.
I was literally about to say that.
Laugh at that because that was funny. I was gonna say, let me help. Oh, that was a voice.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. It was super cute. I was gonna say that. Oh man, I lost my train of thought. The baby that took my mind off that cute voice. Oh, it'll come back to me in a second.
Go ahead, Desiree.
I was just when you was talking about how there was no like reaction from the fathers, I was thinking to myself, it was more reaction when Reuben slept with his daddy concubine. Like it was more, he was more mad then than he was right now.
Yeah.
And that's where I was just like, it's like, I was like, I understand like the reactions and whatnot, but also like David's situation is definitely different. Like David, the only difference I would say with David's situation is like Tamar was actually raped. It was a grievous, it was incest and it was raped and it was people covered it up.
Right.
in the sense that he was king, he had laws in place that he's supposed to enact. Like, if this happens, this is supposed to happen. Like, these are the laws. Like, it was like, because his son is a prince, he just swept it under the rug and was just like,
Mhm.
"Well, I know what happened." But you're not just a dad, you are also a king. And if you allow that to happen in the kingdom, more of this, people are going to think that it's okay for this to happen under your watch because it happened in your house. Different situation. We don't even have like strict laws in place right now for like Israel's sake, for Jacob's sake. But again, I didn't even think about that, Desiree, until you point that out, that like he was more outrageous about someone sleeping with his handmaiden, his son sleeping with his handmaiden versus because that's a defilement too. Like, you slept with the same woman your dad slept with. And, Yah hates that. And so taking all of these things that we're saying into consideration, but saying that, like, what is the righteous standard? At the end of the day, what is the righteous standard? Because at the end of the day, your feelings really don't matter. What is Yah saying how you should move when an injustice happens?
And that's where I was going to say, you just spoke. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. That's it. So I think that when I think of this, I think of that in a situation where even if we experience something that is catastrophic, we have to constantly remind ourselves that the vengeance is not for us to go and seek to prevent someone in a situation, that we have to give it to Yah. We have to. And it's easier said than done, but it seems like now, when that just came over me with that was probably his stance, because he already knows, he done been through some stuff already. So he's probably like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just take this back to my father, because he's gonna be able to handle this better than I am.
Something I also want to add is, especially when you mentioned David, I want to ask, was this before or after he did what he did?
It's after, and I mentioned that it's after, because he probably was just like, he probably didn't feel like he was qualified.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to ask, because
on the fact of rape, because of what happened with Bathsheba.
There you go. Exactly.
And Yah had already told him that the sword was not going to depart from his house.
Yes.
So, but knowing that prophecy, how much of that is also for us to just like turn a blind eye to being a righteous judge? Because we know that raises up judges. You still have a job to do.
Yeah, you're right.
You don't turn it, like, I'm not saying
you have a little bang.
I'm not, when I say vengeance is Yahuwah's, I definitely believe that, because between your vengeance and making a righteous ruling, those are two separate things.
That's right, because you're a king and you had power.
Right,
but
you're a king, you have a mandate.
I think honestly, especially looking at those times, the truth is I don't want to say there wasn't regard for women, because there was, but I personally don't think that they, like, what's the right word to say? Like, because David did what he did, and his was, I would even say, worse, because he murdered somebody after that. And he was absolutely wrong in every way. Okay. Because he did that, I think even after the Lord dealt with him, you're a human being. I think at the same time, he still never felt qualified to judge on the matter that happened to his daughter, because I think he was still dealing with some conflict or some type of guilt still. Remember, he's still very human. Yes, God forgave him. Yes, God, promised him these things. But at the same time, just think about it. I just murdered somebody, did A, B, C, D. Yes, the Lord spoke to me, but now this happened to my daughter. In his mind, he could probably be thinking, what if this was a result of what I did, someone did to me? Right? So there's a whole lot that could be processing through his mind.
Yeah, that's
right?
definitely what
But
power is.
you're very right when you say at the end of the day, there's rules. You have, like, you're the king. So why didn't you do anything? And that's a question we need to make it for heaven for.
But that's why because when we go through our process of cleansing, like I said, I've done some things. I've gone through certain chastisements, but the beauty of being able to be a workman unashamed is the fact that because you know that Yah has cleansed you and forgiven you of those things, if he's truly cleansed you and forgiven you of those things, you know that he forgave you, he cleansed you, he's restored you. Now you have to go out and be unapologetic in the righteous rulings that Yah calls you to. You can't allow your past to affect how you judge a matter, which is the whole reason why the cleansing and the refinement and the purification is so important. So when someone tries to bring up your past, and go, well, you did that, you said you're right, and I did.
Yes,
and Yah corrected me
exactly.
for it, and I'm not gonna not say that you're wrong because I did it before.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
you know, and that's what the problem with. So again, we're looking at this from a very unjust
Mhm.
an unjust state. So if we're looking at it in American terms, right, I'm
Mhm.
not going to take it in my own hands. The American justice system is corrupt, it's unjust. So we're not going to see righteous judgment here. But Yahuwah is a righteous judge, and Israel is supposed to be a righteous nation, and we will be when, you know, heaven comes on earth. Everything will be done in this right order. So women will be vindicated, women will have right rulings, things like this. If it was a perfect righteous ruling, like the things would have happened the way they're supposed to, according to the Torah, according to the law and the instruction and the righteous way on how to go about situations that happen amongst the people.
Mhm.
And I think the perfect picture is when we have a heart that actually fears the Most High, which is the beginning of our wisdom understanding, then we'll be able to make righteous rulings. And not even just righteous rulings, righteous decisions, to where we won't even get to a point where rapes and things like this won't even be a thing in the kingdom. It will never be a thing in the kingdom because the people actually serve and want to serve Yah. And so, like, taking all that in consideration, because we know that, you know, they're literally living next to a Canaanite nation, they're living next to a nation who has no desire to even know or seek or serve the Most High Elohim. They're serving their Canaanite gods. They're doing all kinds of debauchery over there. They are not concerned with righteous ruling. They're not concerned with righteous order. And so because they don't know Yah, and because they really don't know Jacob and his sons and who they serve and what they deem as holy and righteous and clean and pure, they think it's okay for them to show up and be like, hey, slept with your daughter, you know, I really want her and I'll give you anything to marry her. They think that that is okay. They think that they're doing something just and something righteous. And they're looking at him like, you've lost your mind. You have utterly defiled and embarrassed us. Like, that's how Simeon and Levi are just like, oh, y'all have done a wicked thing. But in the Canaanites' mind, because they have no understanding of who Yahuwah is, they have no heart posture to know the righteous Elohim. They're just thinking like, oh yeah, like, yeah, I slept with her and I want her. And my son, and like the fact that he got his daddy involved to be like, hey, my son loves your daughter. Like, he had sex with her. Now he want to marry her. Like, what we need to do to get this thing solidified. And Israel's probably like,
I think you're right. He's just numb. He
was just like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
they don't know. They're ignorant. They don't
Yeah.
know how that culture
Like,
lives. They don't
no.
know. Like she said, they think they doing a good, righteous thing. They have no idea. They're walking up in here and there's like absolutely no way. They looking at like, if you don't get up out of here right now, you know what I'm saying? Type of deal.
It was
Because-
like, you were so brazen to
Right.
even come to me and my 12 sons to think that you could tell me that you defiled my daughter, their sister, in our face, and be like, whatever you want, tell us the price, we'll pay it. Like,
But you know what? I think that
yeah, so that would make me hold my peace. If I was Israel, I would be like baffled to the point where I don't even know what to say because, like, did you like the audacity to tell me this?
But I can tell y'all, when I was like teenage years, early 20s and stuff, like I have older brothers, and I've had a discussion with my older brother about like that. It's important to be taught, like even if it's not women who kind of teach you certain stuff. Because I would tell my brothers, if your little girlfriend bopping here 3 o'clock in the morning and some Daisy Dukes and whatever, like that's not your boo. That's not your wife, and she shouldn't dress like that. And it's not totally the dressing like that. It's how you carry yourself as well around your brothers. You have brothers. What's appropriate and inappropriate? I have two sons. When they have their friends around, one of my sons was like, hey, sketchy boy over there was staring at, his sister. He can tell like the presence of something's just not. But, I remember aunts and uncles, but my uncles more specifically, is like, watch how, why would you go with your best friend to a house and he got 5 friends there? Right. And you're putting yourself in those positions. And so not thinking the worst out of people, but just learning how to protect yourself. Right. So who was stewarding her? Because they had a lot of people who was always worried about the wife for the man, but who was watching her for what she doing? And to be fair, I have one brother that he's a former Marine. We make sure we don't trigger him because he gonna blow the whole spot up. So it's not fair to put him in position like situations. If he misunderstand at all, it's too late. Like that's just how it is, right? So you got the 2 people who probably are ready to turn up, and now you can't calm them down.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, she just was curious. She out there curious. And oh boy's over there trying to barter because he a king or prince or whatever. So he basically like, whatever I ask for, I'm gonna get what I want. Just tell me what the price is, type of thing. So now Jacob got to soak in all of that. I think he numb and he just sitting, which is a compromise thing because he's not taking charge and having order. So yeah, he's letting the sons just go handle it.
Yeah. And so I want to finish reading this so we can kind of get the rest of the story so we can see like, yeah, so Israel is in shock. I think we stopped at, what was that, verse 9, I believe. But Hamor said to them, my son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please give her to him as your wife. Intermarry with us. Give us your daughters and take our daughters for yourselves. You can settle among us. The land is open to you. Live in it, trade in it, and acquire property in it. Then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, let me find favor in your eyes, and I will give you whatever you ask. Make the price for the bride and the gift I am to bring as great as you like, and I'll pay whatever you ask me. Only give me the young woman as my wife. Because their sister Dinah had been defiled, Jacob's sons replied deceitfully as they spoke to Shechem and his father Hamor. They said to them, we cannot do such a thing. We can't give our sister to a man who is not circumcised. That would be a disgrace to us. We will enter into an agreement with you on one condition only, that you become like us by circumcising all your males. Then we will give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We'll settle among you and become one people with you. But if you will not agree to be circumcised, we'll take our sister and go. So, yeah, he's trying to find favor. Like we just said earlier, he's thinking that he's going to find favor by like propositioning them this way, but them saying like it's a disgraceful thing for our sister to marry an uncircumcised man. The disgrace already happened, which is like the whole butt of the joke. Like it's a disgrace for her to marry an uncircumcised man, but it's not a disgrace for her to sleep with an uncircumcised man. It was just like they were literally like saying this riddle or this joke in their face to let them know that like either way, like you've defiled us, because the marriage bed thing, sort of quote unquote marriage bed, the sex act already happened, and telling them that they could be like them just by circumcising the flesh, not realizing that to literally be a part of their nation, they would have to give up all of their defilement, all of their idols, all of their pagan worship, and to serve only the God of Israel. Like that wasn't part of the conversation. It was just like this. We want you to physically hurt yourself because we know that we're about to like take back our word. And like we can kind of see Jacob's old self popping up in this situation. Like Jacob's known to be a deceiver, like, and we're seeing that manifest in his sons again. Like, so like that's that thing that Jacob like was walking in is in his sons, and that's probably another where he's just looking at his sons like he's there, y'all. We don't realize that he's here in the conversation where he's literally hearing Simeon and Levi tell this man and his son, like, yeah, just circumcise yourselves and like, we'll give you our sister. And Israel just sitting there like, I know these boys is lying. Like either he know or he don't know that they're about to really like do this deceitful thing. Like it's just crazy. Paris said they also didn't respect Israel because if it happened, okay, maybe it could have been hush hush, but no, he wanted her and he had to have her. But like the disrespected the man and his entire house, like literally, like, and that's how Simeon and Levi are taking it. Like, you had the audacity to like not only disgrace our sister, but in the fact that like, it could have been hush hush, like just send her back, like, she'll just stay in her father's house all her days and she'll just maybe never be married and just be like a woman of the house. But like everybody knows now that you defiled her, not just all of Israel, but probably all of Haymorden people. So on top of that, gossip gonna spread.
Yeah.
So like we like I can like kind of understand Simeon Levi's like, no, we got to kill everybody that know, because y'all not about to run our name through the mud through all these Canaanite cities. Not finna happen. Like very fleshly, very self-motivated, but also like a lot of y'all are saying, like it was steeped in anger, it was steeped in embarrassment, like it was steeped in how dare you really like embarrass all of our people like this with our only daughter, with our only sister. Yeah, it was just interesting. And I also put in the notes, guys, for I put in here Deuteronomy 22. So like we can only speculate what the situation was, but the more we read about it, we see that Dinah was staying there. Dinah really had no desire to kind of like come back home. So in Deuteronomy chapter 22 and Exodus 22, we can see the breakdown of how Yahuwah talks about what qualifies rape and the punishment. So if he would have raped that girl and she cried out, death is required. That's Torah. Like if a man rapes a woman and she's crying out for help and this thing happens to her, the man dies, the woman doesn't. Because the scripture says like there is no fault on the damsel's end because he forced her. The man dies. It says like kill him, get rid of him. We don't want that in Israel. There is no room for rape. There's no room for rapists in Israel. Like Yah made a very clear distinction in scripture about it. Then it says if a man and a woman get together and she don't cry out, like he needs to marry her and he can't leave her, like he has to marry her and he can't put her out all the days of his life. Like that's your wife forever. You can never like divorce her because clearly, she got into the act and she didn't cry out. And then there's also one about if a man seduces a damsel and he speaks kindly with her and he convinces her to lay down with him, that's your wife. Like you got to pay the bride price of a virgin, even though like she wasn't a virgin when you married her, but you slept with her without the pretenses of marriage. That's now your wife. You need to pay her dad the bride price plus some, I believe. So Deuteronomy breaks it down very clearly how Yahuwah sees and how he sees the act of rape or seduction. He don't like neither one of them, but one requires death and the other one doesn't. The other one requires to marry that woman. Then it also says if the father, when he finds out that this man like seduced his daughter, but he doesn't want that man to have his daughter whatsoever, then that man still has to pay the bride price, but the daughter stays in the house of her father. So we see all these different scenarios that Yahuwah breaks down in detail on how to deal with situations that happen. And so I just want to say that like Yah literally created Torah with women in mind. We are not a second thought. We are not a second choice to him. Like we are his daughters. And when he is talking about these different provisions that need to be set in place, the protections, the coverings to cover his daughter, his precious jewels. Like, I want us to know that because I know there's so many people that think that like, oh, the Bible isn't written with women in mind or women didn't have these rights or women weren't protected. That's a whole lie because I have a righteous Elohim. I have a righteous Father. And I know that he does all of this with protection and covering in mind. It is the wickedness of men who distort and twist the word to make it seem like Yah didn't have any thought or provision or covering for us. Even when they were in the wilderness, when I think it was the daughters of one of the tribe, they were like, our dad didn't have any sons. Are we just going to have no inheritance? Yah was like, that ain't right. Nope, the inheritance goes to the daughters. So the daughters got inheritance. So it's not like this impossible thing that women just didn't have things. Like there were women in Israel who didn't have no husbands. They had property and they had money and they had wealth. And so I just want us to really understand that like the entire society of Israel is built on equity. It's built on equality in the sense of like covering and peace and justice for everyone, for the stranger, for the poor, for the orphan. Like it's literally put in place to cover the quote unquote less the vulnerable per se.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that before we continue.
Jacob had to like he Levi and Simeon have to do business like that on the regular for Jacob to just sit and let them actually have the conversation. You know what I'm saying? He's letting them kind of handle that business while he's still present. So they have to be leader, in some sort of leadership. And like, that's a normal type thing for them. If he's sitting back, letting that happen with them kind of taking control of that. But it does give a different spin of it. Like he knowing the whole time that they got something up their sleeve and he gonna let them get what they asked for. Cause yeah, she was never to be given to them anyway. Like he's knowing that part. That makes me think about it differently. Like, the part of him and his kids he see manifested now, but he's going to let them handle that business. That's why he's quiet, because he kind of see them getting out there.
So in verse 18, it says, their proposal seemed good to Hamor and his son Shechem, the young man who was the most honorable of all his father's family. Lost no time in doing what they said. Like this man was like, I'm gonna do it. Like I want, like he was honorable, but this like the fact that the writers being like divinely inspired to write this part in here that Shechem's son was the most honorable and he hurried to get this thing done because he lost no time in doing so, because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city to speak to the men of their city. They called a whole assembly, like, hey, everybody come together. We got a mandate we need to do because the prince, my son, I'm being king. Every man needs to do this. And he's literally giving this good report of Jacob's sons. These men are friendly towards us. They said, let them live in our land and trade in it. The land has plenty of room for them. We can marry their daughters and they can marry ours, but the men will agree to live with us only on the condition that our males be circumcised, as they themselves are. Won't their livestock, their property, and all their other animals become ours? So let us agree to this term, and they will settle among us. All the men who went out of the city gate agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male in the city was circumcised. So,
okay, yeah. I got a little joke like my mama always say. The stuff for tail. I mean, can you
say it again? Say it again. I'm sorry.
The stuff, the way people are so smitten by tail. My mama say tail, right? But dude, like he got a hold of the good. And he like, hey, y'all line them up. This what we doing. But the whole thing of the lust or the woman, the body, they just jump out there and like they ain't asking no questions about none of that stuff. But you for real gonna just go up under the night. Like that's a little just everybody, because that's what I said. Because I want what I want. And I mean, that's like confusion at the pinnacle. Cause you chasing tail. Like chasing, and you see that manifested in all kind of things, but like to that degree, you taking your whole house, whether it's 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, but y'all gotta go again. I mean, just the graphicness of it, right? The visual, just everything they about to go through, because he want the goodies. He want to keep the goodies. He didn't got the goodies, but he want to keep the goodies, right? Like that's a whole nother. And we see Soul Tide totally different in that part, because smitten with her, I mean, everybody got to go chop off the stuff, because he want to do everything to make it right, but it's almost it's in a You can't say it's in a sweet and like genuine loving way. It sounds so possessive and sounds so distorted though, because like that's just y'all ain't in covenant. Y'all don't worship the same gods. Y'all don't know nothing. But just like that, he made a whole decree for his whole house, or the king did, the prince did, whoever.
I think like reading it and seeing it with spiritual eyes really allows us to see the gravity of soul ties and how foolish it makes us. And you know, a lot of crimes of passion happen because of that stuff like this. People will kill, steal, murder, deceit, like all types of things based off of someone that they slept with, and they have this soul ties, like physical like connection to that because of something that happened in a sinful way. And because like sex is such a mysterious thing that we don't need to know the ins and outs of, but why Yah said this is only for husband and wife under my watchful eye, under my covenant between man and wife, like it's something that's so deep in intrinsic that happens when sex happens between a man and a woman. You know, and then y'all understands all those deep things, but we don't. So we're seeing the manifestation of these deep things manifesting in us in an out of alignment, out of order situation, and it creates chaos. It creates making bad decisions based off our feelings, based off our flesh, and it's just really like wow, to really think about, like, you know, like I've done some stupid things. I've allowed things to happen. You also, we talk about like women in or abusive relationships. Like, why would she stay? Why would she do it? Well, let's really think about the like the depth of a soul tie, the depth of sleeping with someone that's not your husband, that's someone that has no desire to serve y'all or treat you right. And you're wondering why you can't find yourself, you can't find it in yourself to leave a bad situation because you have literally merged your soul with somebody, and it's creating a chemical imbalance. You're out of alignment in so many different ways, and it's just like the rationality leaves your brain when we are out of order and do things out of order. And that's just like on one situation. I'm just talking about like one situation where it comes to like, you know, like rape or abuse or physical abuse or emotional, all these different things. People will stay and allow people to do all types of things to them out of order because they were already out of order. And so people ask our question, well, why do people stay? Or why do women stay? Or why do men stay with abusive women? Or why do men stay with deceitful women? Or how do men get caught up with all these women who just want them for their money? Like all these different things. We're wondering why men would stay with a woman who does not care for him whatsoever, but we neglect to understand the severity of sex.
Yeah, that's real good, Samaria. Because we don't consider the spiritual connection of it. You know, we think of it as more as a physical thing, you know, and that's the whole problem. Because when you know, are intimate with someone, you become one. So, you know, you're sharing parts. You know, they even talk about like in science how, you know, with semen and all that kind of stuff, and you transfer stuff from one person to the other. And, you know, even with your children, different parts of, you know, that person is a part of you. And think about that spiritually, you know, it's the gravity of it. It's like we don't get it. You know, you want what you want in the moment that you want it, and then it happens, and then you're like, why do I feel this way? Because now something is attached to you, a spirit that wasn't there before, and you're like, why do I feel this way? Or what's going on? Why do I think this way? Because now you open the door and allow something to come into you that wasn't supposed to be in you, you know, because you crossed the barrier that you shouldn't have crossed. And we don't think about it like that, you know. As Yah begins to open our eyes, you know, we just really have to sit with those spiritual things that, you know, we gloss over. We know it, we may say it or whatever, but we need to sit with it and meditate on it and understand the heaviness of it, you know. It's literally, you know, you're taking on something else within you that is controlling you and causing you to operate contrary to how Yah designed you to be. And so that's why you feel so confused and, I just can't, I can't breathe without him. I can't, you know, that's not of Yah. You know, we should only have that kind of zeal and passion for Abba Yah, not a person. You love them. Yeah. But when you feel yourself going out of your mind, you know, that's spiritual. Something has grabbed a hold of you that shouldn't be there. And it's confusing that desire and that love that should be pointed upward toward Yah towards a person. It's misdirecting what was
Yeah.
intended to go to the Father to someone else. And that's
Yeah.
a
That's why
dangerous place to
that's
be
why
in.
men say that they feel like women bewitch them. And it's like, you don't never say nobody bewitched you before you got the goodies. After you get them goodies, you thinking about that bewitching, because it's a wrong covenant. It's not right. That wasn't the will of God for that to happen like that.
Yes, and I also wanted to add, I think this is why Paul in Corinthians talks about like sexual, it says flee, like
Yeah,
flee
that's right.
from sexual immorality, because all other sins a person commits are outside the body. But
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on, you better say
but
that.
whoever sins sexually against their own body, like, because it has such a strong weight when you come to know the truth. Like, that's one of the hardest things to break, besides the soul ties that you have to, pray to God for deliverance from. It's also your mental
Mhm.
state once you realize the truth. Like, it eats at you when you realize that, oh my God, it's not even what have you done to someone, it's what have I done to myself. Right?
Absolutely,
And
sis.
so I think because society has made sex seem like fashion, like a form of fashion, like
Right.
it's very like, oh, just like, that's how you say hi to people nowadays. Like, like during like my time, like, it was so important when you
You're
were
laughing,
actually,
but that is so true.
It
That's
is.
like,
It is.
we
you
really,
know,
that is really
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's insane. Like during my time, like it was like, oh, okay, like when you were a virgin, it's like, oh wow, you were a virgin at 18. Like it was like such a sacred, like, oh wow, But now
Yeah.
when you hear of such like younger, and you're wondering like, what do you even know? Like, my God, because society, obviously the prince of the air, has made it seem like, oh, it's okay. That's just a way for you to connect. That's just a way for you to, and it's a lie from the pit of hell,
Come on.
because scripture says to flee, like literally run away.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm glad you brought that scripture up, sis Patty, because our bodies are a temple. So when
Mhm.
Yes.
Paul's writing that, he's writing that with the understanding of knowing that we are the temple. We are the tabernacle that Yah wants to dwell in. And if we are committing sexual immorality, sexual
Yeah.
uncleanliness
Yeah.
within this temple, how
Yeah.
is he to dwell in a place that we
Yeah.
continually defile?
Yes.
He's not. That's right. He's not.
And
He's not.
it's like we have to. I remember I was talking to there's a whole testimony. Like, y'all gave me the opportunity to really sit down with the man that raped me. And I remember telling him, I'm just like, I said, people wonder why we can't hear from God, but it's because your temple is filled with trash.
Yeah.
100%.
It's completely defiled, and you're wondering why you can't hear from God.
Yep.
And it's just like, that is so true. Like people say, oh, I hear from God, I read a revelation, but like, but in your life, you're defiling your body, you're doing this, you're constantly staying like in an inebriated space, but you want me to trust that you hear from the Heavenly Father when I know that he wants to dwell in a place that is prepared and sanctified for him. Not saying that he's not going to get a message through to you, but in the deep level that he wants to reveal some things to you, like we have to remove ourselves from certain covenants and from certain agreements and soul ties
Absolutely.
to hear from him on a more pure level, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah. 100%. God is holy.
I remember there was a young lady that I saw her. She was posting a story on TikTok. She said, I remember I was dating this one guy and like we were sleeping together and God told me that this man was a witch. And I was like, did he also tell you to get up out that bed?
I'm telling you.
Did he also tell you that you shouldn't have been sleeping or fornicating with somebody? Like, he's
Yeah,
telling you to
I
stay
mean-
awake tonight to hear this man chant stuff in your ears and how you're going to be obsessed with him and how you're going to love him forever. But did he also tell you, now repent and don't stop sleeping with people that aren't your husband? So I'm just
No. The other spirit whispered to her, like, can you save them? Like now you're supposed to be there to do deliverance. Like, it's all mixed up.
It's so mixed
out
up.
of
She's
order.
It's
said it right there.
That's the devil,
Said it
right?
right
the
there.
king of confusion, right? That's what it is, right?
Yes.
You can't the thing, when you come to have that intimacy with God, it's so clear. Like
Mm.
it's so clear what is of him, what he wants of you, and like versus whatever the prince of the air is recommending. And whenever people come with those type of conflicts, it's just confusion. And that within itself gets you to spot immediately and right away that there's a spirit around you that's obviously not right, you know? And because God is not a God of confusion.
No.
And so, just like you said, if God gave you the wisdom or the vision to see that this person that you're actually engaging in this act with is so-called whatever you call him to be, you're telling me prior to that, before that interaction, you did not get no conviction in your heart prior to that to say
Mhm.
I should not lay down, but once you laid and the act is complete, I mean, come on now.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
compromise sneaks up on you like that, right? And I
It
would say
does.
that if the village,
Yep.
if you don't actively have somebody saying, take your butt home, you know, you shouldn't be alone with him. You can't control, you know, and getting some order like that, then it's like, but I love him and he loved me.
Yeah.
So, and they compromise to
Yeah.
the, so we're monogamous. Well,
Mhm.
we're going to be together. Will we go to church together?
Mhm.
Will we have a
Mhm.
date to get married?
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
we've
Come on.
been together, you know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you start moving the goalposts
It's
and
true.
doing all that
Yep. That's
compromising because
exactly
you're
how the
like,
enemy
It's
does it.
true.
yes,
Facts.
yes.
Yeah,
And he
it's
does
true.
listen, he does it so swiftly like that to the point to where you're right. The conviction does come after. It's like that part of in some cases, I'm saying in some cases,
Mhm.
it could be that it's such a like a blind, like you kind of love is blind, you know?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
go
Mhm.
blind for a second and you're like, wait a minute. And before you know it, when as soon as that act takes place and it hits you like a ton of bricks, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead
Yeah.
and pump the brakes. Oh,
That's
red
true.
flag, all the flags start throwing out, right? Left and
Yeah.
right. So it's like,
Mhm.
but it's just understanding that order. The order is the key, is key.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order for us as women to come back from what it is that this where we're at right now, is we have to understand that it's Yah, and then it's the man, and then it's us. And so when you look at it in that order, the way that it is created, how is it that I can't bring him and pull him in when he is supposed to be the one teaching and guiding me, because he's supposed to be hearing the voice of the Most High and
Mhm.
dropping that message on, you know what I'm saying? So but a lot of women, like she said, get into that deliverance. Well, I can
Mhm.
help him. Well, I can, if he's not okay, well, he might not be where I'm at, but I know if we love each other and we be together, that in time he'll get to where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
That's out of order.
And
So
you're not even equipped to deal with that spirit just by
chaos.
by that, you know. So
Yeah. Yep.
That was my whole problem. The last boyfriend I had before I actually surrendered my entire life to Yah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh well, he talks about God a little bit over here. He was raised in the Christian church, but like I know Christianity is a lie, but like at least he got some kind of foundation. Girl, all kinds of compromises, all kinds
I
of
know.
bargaining, all kinds of bargaining in the spirit. Like, okay, y'all,
Yes.
but like and like I know I slept with him, but like this gonna be my husband, so like we gonna get it right,
Mhm.
That
like,
part.
corrected.
That part.
And y'all just looking
Mhm.
at me like you're not talking to me, you talking to yourself, because I already
Facts.
told you.
Yes.
Oh, look,
He
you're
looking at
still
you
trying to
like we
convince
fools.
yourself of
Yes.
the sin that you committed was not that bad. It's bad, baby girl. I'm gonna wait for you to realize it, and I'm gonna let it take you down
Listen,
until you cry out to me and be like, Father, I'm sorry.
girl,
That's what
I
happened.
cried
That's
out
what
to him
had
on
to
that
happen.
surgery table with that C-section. I'm gonna tell you that the whole hospital, they knew exactly who the Most High was after I got off that table. Listen, I'm telling you, it's real deal. I tell people all the time. I said, listen, that he chastises the one he loves, for real.
I was just thinking that. I was
He
like,
chastises the one he loves, and he loved me because I get whooped real quick. Okay, he really loved me. That's why now I don't play no games, zero games. I tell people right now, listen, I'm not. You ask me a question, I'm gonna give you the answer. It may not be the answer you want to hear, but I'm just gonna tell you the honest answer because I love you and I don't want to see you get whooped. I was never a child that liked to get beaten, okay? I would like to stay clear of it. So the moment I realized how he operated, I was like, no, this is it, game over.
But you know, if you just even keep in time, because let's just say a whole bunch of you're in that situation and it's an okay relationship, but say it's 2-3 years, whatever, right? The fact that you're not married is still deterring you from your destiny. It's a
Oh,
distraction. It's
absolutely.
holding you up. And I had
Absolutely.
a couple years ago, I had a very graphic conversation with one of my daughters because I'm just like, the woman receives. So if you're thinking about a devil, demon, something, whatever, whoever wasn't supposed to be in your life anyway, but not only we safe sex, blah, blah, blah. I'm like depositing. They're actually releasing
They are.
depositing
They are.
that to connect. And so you don't see it right now, but then years later, maybe when you can't conceive or when you can't get the promotion on the job or you know how people say, I keep dating the same bad habit, the same type of whatever, that spirit is already left in you, those deposits. And then now you out here attracted to, right?
Yes,
or
ma'am.
not seeing the signs of, certain things or whatever the case is. And she had called me a couple months after that. And she was like, Mom, I just thought about something and like that just really bothered me. And I was like, yeah, it wasn't until after I got like my first marriage, divorce, thinking about that, whatever. And the other confusion I had going on as like early 20s was a lot of people was like, oh, it's better to marry than to burn. So I was new to the church and I'm like, okay, so marry him. But I didn't learn till later that wasn't where I was supposed to be. Didn't nobody say that was the one?
That was me with my first
but
marriage.
I just was trying to like, oh, I don't want to be laying up,
That
like,
was
but
me.
wasn't nobody trying to call me out of that to say,
No.
like, did you hear that you're supposed to be here? Is that the person for you? No, everybody just like to just get married, but nobody was saying what was my destiny, what was the covenant, what was the, type of thing. So with my husband, I got pregnant and I couldn't deal with it. And my whole family was like, you crying? You 28 years old, what you crying for? I'm like, I got knocked up. I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. Like,
for real.
I'm telling you, even with my pastor, he said, I heard he want to marry you. I said, I don't know him. Like, now I'm not going to get married because y'all trying to shame me. Like, seriously, like, I just, something happened and it's very public right now or whatever the case is. But like this time I was adamant about when I get married or the next phase of my life, it's going to be right and it's going to be called right. Like he needs to hear, I need to hear, type of thing. But everybody thought it was so normal. It was okay. Like, my parents was like, oh, grandbaby, everybody, like nobody was thinking about why is my child not covered?
It was that guidance.
Why? Yeah. But
that guidance is no joke.
Yeah, but and if it works out in the end, but who's to say the generational curse or because it was out of order again? Like, where's that person who was supposed to? I mean, again, LaTanya was that person that was snatching me out of stuff. Like we get some order, but we got to do that with the kids and the sisterhood because society thinks it's okay. Like we just all like, oh, well, they living together to save money. Oh, well, they doing this. We make all these concessions or whatever.
Yeah.
That's so a couple months ago, I was at a Shabbat fellowship in Dallas and we were talking about like singleness and like some of the women were asking like, well, what, as being women in Yahuwah, like knowing that like Yah's called us to a set apart life, like do we still go out? Like, do we still? She's like, no, like, and the question, basically, the answer was, still be you, have fun, go to things that you like to do, whatever. And then later on that evening, like I read this poem that Yah gave me some years ago, and I was struggling with the whole idea of singleness and being with Yah. And I was about to make a concession for a man who I had a conversation with on the phone, and he was asking me questions about the word of Yah, and he seemed like he understood a lot of things, but like something in my heart was just like, yeah, but I still feel like I'm teaching this man and this is not what I want. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm leading you to the truth. And I kind of like stopped and then like, this person's also a poet and I'm in the poet community and like in Dallas, or I was in a poetry community. And he had posted a quote one day, this brother I was talking to, and he was like, name your God so I can ask his permission to fall in love with you. And when I read that quote, y'all, the Holy Spirit came down like a ton of bricks and answered this man's question, like via my pen, because it was nothing but Yah. When I tell y'all, I read this poem and it was Yah like yelling at me. He was like, to the man who asking like, name your God, like you asked my name with no thought of me.
Yeah,
like
no
you
regard.
asked for her hand in marriage, but like I'm gonna have to, it's like a whole long, it was, when I tell you it was nothing but Yah speaking, it was crazy. It was like the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob answered and says, you can't fall in love with her until you fall in love with me. He's like, you requested my name with no thought to my presence. And this woman, she is my presence. She is walking, breathing like essence of me. So you need to be on your knees. You need to be on your face. You need to humble yourself. Your blood, your sweat, your tears should echo through the Father's throne room before you can even think about trying to get to her. Oh, you need to get some work done with me. Like, it was very so detailed. It was like y'all was saying, this man's blood, sweat, and tears need to be poured out on my throne room. And everything that he think makes him, he gonna have to let it go before he can walk to you. Like, y'all was making it very clear how he sees his daughter. When I tell you Abba Yah loves his daughters, he like any man that's trying to come to you, he needs to understand that he gonna have to go through fire, like quite literally. Because you went through fire, and that man also needs to go through fire, because y'all need to be equally yoked. And I'm the only one that can determine if he's equally yoked for you. But if you get out of if you come out of my house to try to go find a man, you're not going to be equally yoked. So let me show you what it means. And I was like, it really made me, it was like a big old hug from Abba Yah, but it was also like a look here. I'm not going to tell you twice. I'm not going to tell you twice. I already delivered you from that last little knuckleheaded boy that you went around, and I had to deliver you from, break them soul ties off you. You was crying and stuff. Like, you thought your whole life was going to fall apart because you done had sex with this man, and now he done disappeared on you. You think you're pregnant now, and all these things happen. And he like, I done already showed you before, but let me give you a whole word for you and for the rest of your sisters, because I need all of y'all to know this. And it was such a love letter, but it was like a fatherly love letter. Like, I'm so dead serious, but I'm also going to express my love for you and for my sons. But I also need to let you know how serious this is. Because y'all like, I don't play about marriage covenants. And I need you to understand how serious I am about this, and how serious I am about you, and how serious I'm about how I am about the man that I have for you. Because I'm not going to present this gift that you are to him unless you're ready. Because I see my sons as precious jewels too. You ain't finna get this man all upended and out of order because you didn't do the work you're supposed to do, and vice versa. And it was just like, whoa. Like, I stopped caring about dating after that. After I got that word, it's like, I'm just going to sit down. I'm just going to focus on what you got for me, Abba. And everything else, you do it in your time. I ain't worried no more. Because I was really in a space where I'm like, well, I want to be married by this age, and I want to have kids by this age. And like, but I also feel like if I'm just so on fire for y'all that like I'm going to scare some men away, and y'all's like, girl, let me get you together. Because you about to end up messing up what Terrence said, your destiny, by trying to step out of order and kind of step out of my house. And I was like, I'm going to be quiet now. I'll share the poem in like the group chat, y'all.
Thank you.
I was about to say, cousin, because I remember you sending me that voice memo. I got it saved in my phone.
Okay, y'all, look. When my cousin told me she was going to get married, she was like, you didn't really seem like you was happy for me. I was like, I just want to make sure you understand the severity of marriage, because I don't know that man like you know that man, but I just want to make sure that you ain't unequal. I sent her the whole poem. I was like, I need you to, like, just the word y'all gave me, I'm going to give it to you. Because when I tell you, every single one of y'all, I will send y'all that poem. If you're single, if you're married, whatever. Because I'm like, y'all done showed me how serious marriage is. I don't want nobody I love doing something without understanding how a man is supposed to be with you, Oh my goodness. Yeah, me and my cousins, my cousin-in-law now, like, we're on good terms now, but I was like, yeah, I didn't really like you when I first met you. Like, I'm very honest. Like, I'm a very loving different person, but like, I'm gonna be honest too. Like, he was like, I feel like you didn't like me. I was like, and you felt it right because I didn't. Like, so, but like, we're so good now. I love Scotty, but like, literally we had that conversation, and I was like, because I just know my cousin, like, I see y'all's hand in her life. And I'm gonna be so upset if you try to come in and derail it because y'all out of order, because y'all are unequally yoked. Like, I would just be so upset. Like, that was literally how I'm like,
I love you too, cuz.
I was like, yeah, Scotty, know I love him. And we had this whole conversation maybe like a couple months ago, but it was just like, Yah has really revealed the severity of these things to me. And it would be a disservice. It would be a disservice if I didn't relate, knowing that he's made me a mouthpiece, relate the severity to other people who are single or getting engaged or getting married. So like, you need to understand this before you go into this.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Miss Connie said something.
Got it back there eavesdropping. That's what he doing.
He is.
Yeah.
Got it. I know. Your wife is in good hands with this Bible study, baby. You ain't got nothing to worry about.
Does anybody want to finish the rest of this chapter? I think we stopped at verse 25, and y'all can just read all the way down until like 31.
I'll read it. Now on the third day after the circumcision, when all the men were terribly sore and in pain, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's full brothers, took their swords boldly and entered the city without anyone expecting them of evil intent, and they killed every male. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house where she was staying, and left. Then Jacob's other sons came upon those who were killed and looted the town because their sister had been defiled and disgraced. They took the Canaanites' flocks and their herds and their donkeys and whatever was in the city and in the field. They looted all the wealth and took captive all their children, their wives, even everything that was in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have ruined me, making me a stench to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. My men are few in number, and the men of the land will band together against me and attack me. I shall be destroyed, and my household." But they said, "Should he be permitted to treat our sister as a prostitute?"
And that is the rest of that chapter. And so I did have some notes on that. We're just saying, like, if Israel would have took the lead, he could have responded to this without the vengeance aspect. So like we talked about earlier, like the righteous judgment should have been had in whatever situation, whether it be Jacob, whether it be David, whatever it was, there should have been still a righteous judgment, a righteous movement, a righteous word should have went forth on what had happened. But because it didn't, and it defaulted to the hands of the sons who were full of anger and rage, we get this out of order mess where like people died that didn't have to die, like the whole town got slayed. Y'all over here taking all the women and children in the flocks, y'all looting the place. Like, this is clearly your vengeance. This is clearly your vengeance. Now, if it would have been a righteous judgment, Israel or Jacob could have been like, you know, what you've done in our sight, in the sight of our Elohim, is a defilement. We cannot allow you to marry our daughter. You know, we don't want your bride price. She's just gonna stay in my house for the rest of my days. But like, it could have just ended with him like, these are the rules that my Elohim has said to me, and because of the disgrace that has happened, we're just gonna take my daughter back, and that's about it. But because he remained quiet, he deferred his rule and his action to his son. But then at the same time, he was outraged when he realized how far of an extent that they went with their deceit. Like, I don't think Israel really understood how bad they was gonna do these people.
I think he knew.
He's like, you think he knew?
I do. I think he sat back, and when it unfolded, now he's more upset. He got to pack up and move. That's why, you know, but I think you know that. You know which one of your girlfriends a ball of fire, which one of your cousins, which one gonna ride with you. And them boys stood on business. I mean, them two went in, they handled the business, and the rest of the people followed, the rest of the brothers followed, but they stood on business, and then they checked him. Like, it's
They
about
did.
disrespect. Like, are you saying you worried about your reputation?
That is,
Like,
that's what I
so
saw.
where was your fear from that? Like,
Yeah.
there's no way he didn't think. If you got somebody that is hard to control, or they temper, or what, you do, that's the first thing you say. Make sure you go get him. Y'all keep him, if you know that that's the one. So I think he knew. It's just when it got big, the fire got out of control, then it's like, oh. So he's kind of saying it to them, but he let it happen. Because he
Yeah.
got I'm thinking with Jacob, he's got men that stand behind him that have been in service to him. So, still somebody will come tell you, hey, you want me to keep an eye on that? You want me to go? Nah, he knew they were going to stand on business. He just didn't know that it was, and now he got to pack up and move, and he wasn't ready to move.
Yeah. And that's something that I saw too. I was just like kind of like what Desiree was saying, like he was more angry at Reuben for sleeping with his handmaiden than he was for the disgrace that happened to his daughter. And we're seeing that even in his response of just like, oh my gosh, the Canaanites coming, few, and then they're gonna attack me. Like, you didn't even respond like this when you got the news of what happened to Dinah. You're more concerned about, again, like when I was reading like in 33, where he bought the land from Hamor, he bought the land from Shechem, like these these international treaties and agreements that he was making. He was more concerned about keeping that relationship intact. I'm not saying that's his main focus,
compromise,
but I'm thinking it was a piece of why he didn't righteously judge the situation and say, no, we cannot make marriages with you, because he already know what y'all told him. Don't get no wives from the land of Canaan for your sons. And now this man's telling you we can intermarry, and you didn't say not a word to say, no, we don't do that.
So the boys helped him decide. The boys helped him pick a side. That's what they did. They took away the option for him.
And they took the whole option away.
That's right.
Actually, they brought the women into camp, though.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah. But that's because he left them with no direction. He didn't take charge over it. But yeah.
And so it's like, I'm just like, in this last part, like, should he have treated our sister like a prostitute? And so I want to talk about that part, because if it was, because basically he was saying, I slept with her, I like the goods, now I want to buy it. Kind of like that test drive it. You know how people say in the world, like, you can't buy the car unless you test drive it, like as a insinuation of saying you got to have sex with somebody before you decide if you want to marry him. All out of order, definitely satanic. But in this situation, that's literally what Levi and Simon, like, you telling him that it's okay to test drive our sister and then be like, oh, I like her, I want to sleep. Like, that's prostitute behavior. And we talked about, me and Latanya earlier, we talked about how, like, even Tamar, not Tamar Davis Tamar, but Tamar Judah's Tamar, the Tamar that had to dress up like a prostitute to get the blessing because, Judah married that evil Canaanite woman and all the mess happened. He even asked her, when he thought she was a prostitute, he said, like, what should I pay you so I can sleep with you? Like, she got the goods up front. She got the money. She got she got more than what Dinah got.
Yeah.
She was like, Judah was like, I want to sleep with you. Like, what do I need to give you so I can sleep with you? She was like, give me your signet, give me your staff, give me everything that pertains to the kingdom. Then you can sleep with me. Dinah didn't even get that promise before she let this man sleep with her. And Tamar was pretending to be a prostitute and got all this up front. So, like, I want us to really understand, like, Simeon and Levi are like, no, for real, you thinking that it's like, you're saying that it's okay for him to treat our sister like a whore. Like, that's my response, because that's literally what they're saying. Like, there's no excuse, because even prostitutes get their money up front.
Yeah. They stood on business.
And they were like,
tell that. That's what they're saying. Yep.
And they're like, I'm not sorry. We're not sorry.
They wasn't.
We are. And it's just like, I mean, this is kind of like a crazy place to end our Bible study for tonight, but it's just like, this is what happens when we don't have wise counsel, and not just wise counsel and courage to rule righteously.
Yes.
So I want that to be like the takeaway. One, we broke down, we talked about a lot of things pertaining to, like, was it rape? Was it not rape? How, as women, how should we cover ourselves? How should we when it comes, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about marriage, we talked about soul ties, we talked about all these things pertaining to, at the end of the day, just stay in your father's house. Daughters, stay in your daddy's house, stay in Yahuwah's house. And so at the end of the day, woo, y'all gonna fight for you, because we see, I'm gonna say y'all's gonna fight for you. And later on, when we get into 35 next week, we're gonna see that like Yah still said that he put the fear of all the nations. He put the fear of them into all the nations anyway. So again, Jacob, his anxiety, like we talked about when we first opened up this Bible study, the anxiety, the thinking about what's gonna happen if this happens and how I move like this. Y'all's like, I'm about to teach you another lesson. Because even though your sons did this in anger, I'm still with you.
Right.
And so Yah still is showing his grace in the midst of like foolishness and deceit. And he goes before us to put the fear of his spirit. Not saying that we're supposed to move deceitfully, but saying in our era, because we're in covenant. I want us to see that when I say this, I'm saying this in the confines of Israel, and all his sons are in covenant with Yahuwah. They got another level of grace and favor that's with them that the Canaanite nations do not have, because they are not connected to Yah. Not saying that because we're in covenant with Yah, that gives us the right to move deceitfully. And that's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying when we fall and when we mess up, there is grace and provision. Absolutely. Because our heart is still saying, I serve Yah. I'm serving Yah. I'm on this journey of getting to be better and trying to do better and recognizing that I probably shouldn't have did it like that this way, but hallelujah, he was with me and he covered me in my foolishness. Like, that's what we're seeing with Simeon and Levi and all of Israel, even in the midst of this crazy situation. Same thing with Esau and Jacob. Even though Jacob did it deceitfully, Yah still covered him. Yah still blessed him. Yah still gave him grace. Because the promise of covenant is with Yasharel. It's not with the Canaanite nations. It's not with the nations who blatantly decide they don't want to serve Yah. And so I want us to look at it like favor is literally not fair.
I mean, but they were driven by the violation. Right. And for all of those boys to go all in. I mean, I used to be like that with my brothers. Don't mishandle my brothers. You could get the smoke, but that's what happened. They did it to the extent of, you're not going to come in and move funny with my sister, period. And they did, they were grieved to the highest level. So even if, I feel like between the two boys initially, even if it wasn't the trickery of, oh, go get circumcised, they still would have did some damage, because their whole point was, I don't like what you did, and you don't get to come back and put sugar on top and make it okay. That's their thing. You defiled my sister, and they were very grieved by that.
And I agree, like that's the word of the night for this entire thing. It was about the defilement, and how we know how Yah feels about defiled things. Like, we're supposed to make distinctions between the clean, the unclean, the holy, and the profane. And none of those distinctions were made in this entire story until Simeon and Levi were like, we finna make a distinction. We're gonna make it known that like this is a thing that never should have happened in Israel. And it tells us that like a horrible thing has been done in Israel. Like, this outrageous thing has been done. It was outrageous. And so they responded with it was an outrageous defilement. And so they responded in an outrageous way. Yes, they could have done it in a more noble fashion, but that's not what we get. But again, they're young. We don't know how old Simeon and Levi are, but we know that they probably in the prime of their youth, because they out here like, I can do it. Like, they're not scared. And I want to put like a side note in for next week. We're going to talk about what Desiree brought up with Reuben sleeping with Bilhah. And so as a side note, as an extra biblical read, there is the Testament of Reuben, where Reuben talks about his side of the story, about why he did what he did, the spirit that was upon him when he did that unclean vow thing, and how his dad had to literally pray for him so that Yah would not kill him for what he did. And so I'm gonna put the link. I'm gonna put the link in our Instagram chat, and I'm gonna try to find it before we close tonight. So if anybody wants to read it,
do you have it, Samaria?
I got it somewhere in my saved
I
internet.
was about to say I'll look for it and put it.
I was like, I think I have it in my notes somewhere, like the 7 spheres of error.
I still get it.
But like, it's such a really good read as we're gonna read 35, where we see what happened with Reuben and getting more background information. Because when I tell you, reading the Testament of Reuben alongside with chapter 35 really helped me understand spiritual warfare a little bit better, a lot of bit better actually. As Reuben starts talking about, like, when he was in youth, the spirit of fornication came upon him and all this other stuff happened. And he was saying, he did a wicked thing in the house and had an angel of Yahuwah told on him. Like the angel of Yah ran and told, hey, Israel, do you know what your son just did? Like, you can't hide nothing. You cannot hide anything from the Father. Oh, thank you, Des. I think you shared it to me individually. I'm about to put it in the chat. Ooh.
Oh, she pulled it up already?
Yeah, she did. I'm about to put it in it. So the testament, so this is the test. So the link here is a testament of all the sons. Each son has their own testament, their last dying word to their sons while they're on their deathbed. Kind of like how, all the patriarchs told their sons, like, hey, I'm going to give a blessing to you. I'm going to give a blessing to you. Reuben is talking to his sons, telling them to be forewarned about this spirit, because it tries to get you in your youth. And I need you to be aware, because I fell into this temptation. And if it wasn't for my dad praying for me, like, I would have died. And while I was fasting, the Father revealed to me the 7 spirits of error that was like trying to get me and all these things like this. And so like, it was really insightful. And I think we talked about a lot of this stuff tonight already, because you're going to see a repeating theme within the sons of Jacob, where their fathers are warning them about the spirit of fornication, about women using their body in their bewitchingness to trap them. And it's going to be the downfall of the nation, which we know that was end up happening over and over and over again. They get caught up with these foreign women. They start worshiping other guys. And then, there's a dismantlement of the nation over and over and over again. Like the severity of soul ties and having sex outside of marriage and being unequally yoked is like a common thing when you hear each son of Jacob tell their sons before they, hey, if you keep moving like this, it's going to be the destruction of our family. It's going to be destruction of the tribe, of this tribe and that tribe. Like, it's a constant theme. And so like, that's why, like, when we were talking in the chat, like, you're saying like, sexual immorality, sex, any kind of like sexual uncleanliness that we do within our body is such a serious sin. And like, the forefathers have been like preaching and warning this every time they had a chance, because they are literally testifying to their mistakes as a warning, so that you don't have to go through it by experience. You can go through it and have wisdom by not having to go through it at all. But yeah, I think so. As we read 35 next week, I suggest, I would hope, if you're led to read the Testament of Reuben, to hear like the grievousness and how he tackled repenting in that season for what he knew was wrong. Like, he didn't intend, I think he fasted for like 7 years. He was like, I didn't eat nothing good. I only ate what was like, I didn't eat nothing that was tasty. Because he was like, the level of heart posture that Reuben had when he realized his sin. A lot of us sometimes because sin and sexual sins have become so like common, we don't understand the severity. But Reuben understood the severity, and he literally afflicted his soul for 7 years, to like show his sorriness, or to humble himself before the Father, knowing that Yah saved his life when he didn't have to because of what he did. And during this 7-year fast, Yah is revealing to him these deep spiritual things to be aware of. It's so good.
I think, didn't you do a Bible study on that a couple years ago? Because I think I bought the book and now I got to go find it.
Yes, we did.
We were in a Bible study together.
She did. She told me that, because she was telling me which version of the book to order. And I promise you, I got an Amazon drawer somewhere. I need to go, like, I remember her telling me that.
The Sudafed, remember, Samaria?
They call the extra biblical text the Sudafed instead of the Pseudepigrapha. I don't know how to pronounce it, y'all. But
Wow.
yeah, guys, that's all we got for tonight. I'm excited for next week to go over, like, Yah reminding Jacob who he is, and we're gonna get a breakdown of like all the sons again. And then I'm trying to stop. We're gonna do 35 and 36. If we do end up talking about the Testament of Reuben, we might just do that in 35, but I'll check in with y'all throughout the week to see like if that's something that y'all want to like dive into, because it is very meaty. It's very meaty. But yeah.
Yeah, I put a note in there about Proverbs 5 because it talks about dealing with corrupt women and the wisdom that you should use in listening to your parents. That entire chapter kind of, speaks to that. So that'll relate to that whole situation with Reuben and all that kind of stuff too.
And we know that like in Proverbs it's written to like men, but also like obviously I know y'all know that like even reading that with like men, like corrupt men,
Right.
to dealing with any corrupt person, right? We know there's using women because we know some women who be be getting people caught up like that, but I also know some men like that.
Absolutely.
We also, I didn't talk about it in the notes, but me and Latanya talked about it before we got on the call tonight about understanding what it means to be a cult prostitute. Like there's a male and there's female cult prostitutes, and so we kind of like talked about that because I was looking up like, well, what is a prostitute and what's the difference between a cult prostitute and a regular prostitute, and so we got into that, but I'll say that for another day because it is 10 o'clock where y'all are and it might be later where other people are, so I want to make sure that we get off at a decent time tonight.
I appreciate that because I'll be hitting the road in the morning.
Yes. Oh yeah, we're gonna pray for safe travels for sure.
Yes, especially because the weather's shifting and stuff. So she's got a lot